So it's all about this today, and I'm glad because this is the antidote to this. That was yesterday's video, the experimental racer pink, which was just, I don't know, I mean, like, there are shoes and there are shoes and there's something that you just like, you can find a way to like, but I found it really hard to like that experimental racer pink yesterday. And this today, this is your classic Air Force One silhouette, your classic Air Force One color blocking. Everything about it is like a pure, clean Air Force One, whereas everything about yesterday's shoe was just experimental, and that's that's its name, so fair dues, But I'm glad to be able to sort of balance out yesterday's innovation and creativity with a more standard, solid fare from the Air Force One and what an Air Force One is. Now this guy's all over the place with drop dates and things like that. It was already up on Sneakers app here in Tokyo, Japan. Suddenly it's not there anymore. They've revised the drop date a few times, but we've settled on February the 11th or February the 16th, so we're somewhere round about there. I actually think it's going to end up being the 16th, but there's plenty to talk about, plenty to look at, and there's a question to answer, which is, what is it about the materials on these guys that hooked me and drew me right in? Because it's the materials that got me to look deeper at this shoe, and I'm sure glad I did. And I'm going to bring all that to you today as we take a close-up look at the Nike Air Force One B 3M Snake. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel. Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channelです。毎日アップするので、毎日見てください。And every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today, like I said, we've got a classic Air Force One silhouette and colorway in the spotlight. And usually the Air Force One silhouette doesn't change very much. 39 years, pretty much unchanged shoe. Occasionally there are a few little twists in there. A couple of women's sneakers have gone off to the left, and the odd shoe like yesterday's experimental have gone off to the right. But here we are, right down the middle of the road with a standard colorway. But then you've got the 3M hits on there, and also some beautiful turns on the material as well. So a great shoe to look at. Lots to talk about in that shoe, and we'll be doing that right now and taking a look at it now. Originally, so I said at the top of this video, it's all about the materials that drew me in, and there's sort of contrast between the materials on them. We'll be staying out wide to start with, and then we'll zoom in a little bit on a couple of those materials before going through the rest of the shoe. So wide, looking at the shoe, you've basically got three important things to look at in the colors. First, let's go with the overlays, the highest pieces of material in the shoe, which are all in a beautiful silver grey with a very glossy feel to it, that 3M feel to the shoe, which is in the sort of highest parts of the materials and got that kind of sheen to them. And then opposite that in the panels, you've got the black matte finish. And not only is it black matte, and this is the key as far as the materials are concerned for me, there's also tumbled leather going on in there as well. And we'll get into a couple of places where that tumbled leather is and isn't in a minute, because the thing I want to get to before that is that we've got that shiny, bright, clean, smooth overlays on there, and then you've got the panels which are in that sort of darker, softer matte finish, and then balancing that out, if we go on and have a look at the swoosh, you'll see that it sits right between the two perfectly. It really, really does. That whole shiny, bright, glossy feel of the light colors, and then the darker colors drawn towards the black kind of matte finish of the leathers on there. And it's great the way the swoosh sort of counter punches both of those and sits right between the two. And if we're on that swoosh, we get to the tumbled leathers that I was talking about, especially on that midfoot panel there. You can see how tumbled they are, and again, that matte finish really helps that pop, but also the gloss finish of the overlays helps that tumbled leather of the underlays really, really work. But if we go forward to the toe and have a look at the panel on the toe there, you can see that's much less tumbled than that midfoot panel was, and it's almost like after they treated it, they sort of flattened it out a little bit more, and you can still see the lines and the outlines of the tumbled leather effect, but the sort of bubble is kind of gone. It's not got that rough, unfinished feel about it that you'd normally see with tumbled leather. So it's kind of, I was surprised to see that, to be honest. I was surprised to see that the toe doesn't sort of feature the same treatment in its leathers and materials as the rest of the black parts of the shoe, but doesn't take away from it at all. It's still a really cracking shoe, really beautiful shoe. And since we're right there, we might as well go to one of the near little features on this. I think to look out on Air Force One, some do, some don't. In the case of these guys, they have gone with that little swoosh down the bottom of the lacing system there in black on silver, and it's little details like that that I really like. But one thing that I'm always cautious of is when we look at Air Force Force Ones when they don't have a Dubray in the promotional materials, as these guys don't. I wonder if there is one at all, or if the Dubray isn't there when the swoosh is, or something like that. If you know something about Dubrays versus swooshes in Air Force Ones, let us know in the comments down below. And then going up from that, let's follow up through the lacing system, which is very standard to the top of the lacing system, and you can see that black on silver branding up there, and it's standard Air Force One branding, Nike Air Force One. I never thought I'd appreciate that as much as I do. I'm usually critical of the double Air, Nike Air Force One, but after yesterday's interesting shoe that totally destroyed the tongue. The tongue was very much rethought on yesterday's shoe. It's great to be back to that sort of standard style and the black branding on top of the grey panel, and then it's not too far to go back from that and have a look at the insoles and see that inverted, to see the sort of the grey branding in there on the black insole. I always kind of, it's a thing that I never really realised about shoes, and I've kind of grown to appreciate as I've had this channel. I've been looking at things like this here, is that kind of duality between the tongue branding and the insoles, and you can see it really perfectly here with the grey panel and the black branding on the tongue, and then it's the black insole with the grey branding inside the shoe, and then it's not too far to go from there to what was really surprising to me, and I'm not going to do it just yet. It was such a surprise to me when I looked at this detail, because I wasn't expecting it given the rest of the shoe. And we're talking about the heel. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's this right here. Ding. Do you know what I'm talking about now that you can see it? Black on black branding. Totally surprised. I think Nike Swoosh Air, if I'm not mistaken, on there. I was expecting a black panel and grey or silver branding on the back there, so I was really surprised to see black on black at the back of these things. So that came as a bit of a surprise to me. But what didn't come as a surprise to me is how well they've done in the bottom half of the shoe. I'm kind of like not yet decided on the midsole, which is all white, given the grey and the silver up above and the treatment on the snakeskin there. I wonder if white was the right choice. Maybe it's just too stark compared to the rest of the shoe. But what I do like is the fact that the branding on the midsole on there is Air, with the line that wraps around to the medial side, white on white. They could have gone with black there, for example. I think they would have been wrong. It's already a busy enough shoe in other places to have another point of busy at the back end of the midsole there. So I'm kind of happy with the white on white there, and I'm super happy, like kind of what's the right word for it? It's like inappropriately happy with the outsole on these guys. It's I don't know, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say 90% of Air Force Ones, the midsole and the outsole match, and usually in some light colours like white and white, and 10% they'll do something interesting down below. They did something really interesting earlier last year with like a cherry red outsole, I remember, on a particular pair of shoes. But these guys making that choice to go with the black outsole really matches the rest of the shoe in contrast to the white midsole, and then you look up high with the silvers on black as well up there. It totally works. And if we quickly flip back to yesterday's shoe and you see that gum sole below that upper, and it's like ooh, and back to today's shoe, and you can see what an important feature it is to have that black outsole on there, and it completes the shoe and it balances everything out. So for me, if we come back out and look at the whole shoe, this is your classic Air Force One silhouette. It's a simple colorway but with enough business going on in there, with things like the silver and the glossy finish to the overlays and the tumbled feel to the panels and stuff like that, and then the bridge between those two is that beautiful snake swoosh on the side. So it's a great looking shoe. It's great to be able to bring you that in comparison to yesterday's shoe, because they really do stand off of each other. And we've got some interesting stuff coming down the line as well, so keep your eyes out for that. There's an Air Jordan 3 that I'm hoping to look at really soon called Cool Grey, and if you remember last year, the Air Jordan 4 Cool Grey was a shoe I was very interested in. And there's something else, yeah, that's right, it's a Dunk Low that I've got my eye on, and Hyper Cobalt I think it's called. So interesting shoes coming down the line to keep an eye out for you guys. But for now, all that's left for me to do is just to thank you guys for checking out the content. I do truly appreciate it, and a lot of you guys out there dropping the comments down below, trying my best to get those replies to you guys. So thanks very much for doing that, and I'll just do what I do at the end of every single video, which is remind you that I do this every single day, and that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.